So then let me ask you this on top of that, if I may. Where do our rights, any rights, but particularly the rights to own guns, where do those rights come from? Where do they originate from?
Constitution.
Before the Constitution?
Anytime.
So you're saying where the idea for those rights came?
Where does the right, any right really, but
any right? Well, I guess your basic God-given rights. I would say your human rights that most people agree you have, but I guess you really don't have any rights. If they want to take those rights away, they can. You're going to be powerless unless whatever you can do with your own bare hands. But the rights, I guess, is just what everybody agrees in the country. The Constitution, Bill of Rights is something so highly regarded that as a country we agree, you don't mess with these things. This is, everybody should have this, and that's that. So yeah, I think the rights is just, they'll last as long as everybody living under those agree that they are rights.
When it comes to schools, obviously you all are students, teachers, administrators, and everything. What are your thoughts, given the climate that we operate in our society with, we've got school shootings, mass shootings, things like that? What are your thoughts regarding armed teachers or administrators, within the schools themselves?
I think if they're like a reputable person, like in our school we used to have Mr. Mead, who's no longer here, but he was an ex-military person, so I would entrust him with the firearm. I don't think we should arm every teacher per se. I'm against that because they could easily be taken, or you never know. And then there's also, like, we have Officer Hart, who's on campus too, who he carries a firearm with him as well. So I think that protection should be enough. But
which teachers should and shouldn't have firearms? I'm just kidding. Give me a full list. Yes.
I think to the first question of guns in schools, I think obviously they don't belong in schools. And they don't belong in schools just like drugs don't belong in schools, several things don't belong in schools. Government regulates drugs very heavily, but the past 40 years they've been in schools regardless. I don't expect the government to do a better job of regulating the guns in school. Well, not regulating, I mean keeping them out if they can't keep other things out. Like they need, that's something that I think we should focus on more, is keeping them out, attacking more the core of the problem, the mental health issues that cause most of guns being brought into schools, that and gang-related issues, keeping young people out of gangs. I feel like that's kind of a crucial thing. But with the teacher thing, one, I didn't really focus on that. We didn't focus on that as much in research. But if that was to go, there would have to be, in my opinion, extensive training. When teachers are off in the summer, I'm sure sometimes you guys do teacher training or something. So if a school wanted, I think it would have to be picked by the school administration or something through the government. The school want to pick a teacher, and they'd have to go extensive psychological training with police and scenario training, at least like a week or something. I don't know. But
do you think there's there could be an opportunity to establish more safeguards by using ex-military or, involving people that, clearly have been vetted, they know how to use a firearm, but there's a lot of concern in the media and the society about our military once they get back, or ex-military, and how do they plug back in? Do you think that may have some merit to, create programs to where you have former military as your security, in a school setting?
I mean, if you're diagnosed with like PTSD and everything, then obviously you should.
Right. I'm talking about the ones that are, a lot of them retire.
So they would pass all the background checks, like
Yeah, they're
health
still
checks.
upstanding citizens, things like that, but a lot of them find themselves idle. Looking for other work or
Yeah, I
things like
think-
that, but,
I think that might help because, I mean, many people in their role in the military is to defend or protect other things. And I think if you do get a former military member, I think that would be an okay role there, protecting the children in the school. And I think that would actually help them integrate back in society, being able to use something they were already trained for. Back to the teacher thing, I want to go back to that really quick. Personally, I don't think that weapons should be allowed in a classroom at all. If they're going to be in schools, it should be in the office. Of course, like, Officer Hart coming in to talk to us in the classroom, whatever. But I think it should be delegated to one, maybe two people that are not often in classrooms. Just because I think, of course, if you try to keep it quiet, eventually people would know who has or does not have a weapon. And that may, of course, make children uncomfortable or young kids uncomfortable in a place that you're supposed to be the most comfortable, really.
Guys, maybe just shift gears here just a little bit. So far the discussion's been a lot on human rights and things like that. And so obviously the support for gun control comes from a perceived increase in violence and gun violence and things like that. Do you have information as far as statistics and things like that on how much gun violence there is in the United States?
Yeah. So according to the National Crime Victimization Survey, violent crime has actually been on decrease since 1990. My personal opinion is a lot of it is an increase, or say massive increase in media in the past 10 to 15 years. Because I'm sure 30 years ago, we didn't hear every single day about the awful crimes being committed in the city 2,000 miles away from us. It wasn't blowing up in our phones, on our screens, every 20 seconds telling us, oh, 20 people died. Because that's a lot of times what we wake up to nowadays. If you want it, if you see it all, it's all over the place. I think that really makes kind of in the back of our minds, makes us think that the world's significantly more violent than it's ever been. In my opinion, it's not.
You covered what I was going to say.
Okay. Yeah, 2011 homicide rate was almost half of that in 1991. That's focusing in the U.S. Of course, other countries have gone up.
Here's like why they kind of denied, like they couldn't buy a weapon or something like that. It said among the 21 states agencies that reported reasons for denial was a felony conviction or indictment was the most common reason to deny the application in 2010, which was about 31%. A state law prohibition was the second most common reason. It was about 16%, including other prohibitions.
If there's any questions, I might add the on-topic crime thing we were talking about. There's also very specific things that, not very specific, but there's several things that will drastically increase the chance of being in a gun-related incident or crime. Well, to begin, there's 40,000 gun-related murders, or not gun-related murders, gun deaths in the U.S. per year, and over 23,000 of those are suicides. And that trend is not seen in other countries where the murder rate is comparable to the U.S. Not in many other countries. But, so to go off that, the factors that can increase that significantly from the 20,000 that are still left are location, low-income areas, and they said the Crime Prevention Research Center stated that 50% of murders occur in 2% of the 3,142 counties in the United States. So that means that half of the murders occurred in 62 counties in the whole country. So a county in a quarter, give or take, per state. And 33% of gun-related homicides linked with gang and drug activity. And age, gender, things like that can also vary. And I think a lot of the gun control issue also stems from the mass shootings that occur. And that is, I'm not going to say it's not a problem. It is a problem. But when compared to the regular amount of homicides per year, it's a staggeringly low number for, the total amount of mass shooting deaths. So that means 4 or more people involved in a firearm shooting that resulted in death. From 2006 to 2017 was 1,358 people. 1,358 deaths in 11 years. The same number, so in 1 year, in just 2016, it was over 10,000. So in just 1 year, it's already 10 times the amount of 11 years. So it's, if we were to focus on the gun control issue, it would be in a completely different area of the issue.
So let me ask, in what ways do mass shootings differ from other types of gun violence?
Okay.
Since you brought that up.
So mostly, I think a lot of times the motive is different. Almost all mass public shooters have had extensive histories of mental health issues, either delusional, psychiatric, depression or anger, disturbing behaviors, or interpersonal violence. So there is a strong trend there for the mental health or the history of people committing mass shootings.
Does a background check cover that?
No, background check
Does it
does
cover
not.
mental health?
No, it does not. That's something that I think
That's one of the things that
we should have. Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, I think the mass shooting it's a different issue. Of course, it happens in places that guns aren't allowed. Concerts, well, I guess technically a hotel or whatever. Yeah. And it's a different issue. It's a security issue, mental health issue. You have to better educate people on it.
Kind of piggybacking along with that, but with something you mentioned earlier, you talked about media coverage and that sort of thing, saturation of the news with gun violence and things of that nature. What role does public opinion, or how has public opinion shifted, say, since 1991 to now?
In relation to public opinion on firearms?
Public opinion on gun control.
I mean, I think it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
I wasn't around in 1991.
But you guys did.
Right. From just what I've heard, I guess, from family or whatever.
You were around in
is-
1991?
Is that people were much more relaxed. America had I guess you could say, stronger maybe gun culture. People weren't as against it. I don't know. But I think today, with more people talking about the bad things happening because of it and pushing that out, and just, it's something that is going to get media coverage, is going to get people viewing it, is going to make them money. And I think it's just like a cycle of that. It grows and grows.
The media did what they set out to do. When they were like covering all these shootings and everything, they were scaring everybody. Now everybody's scared of guns.
Adding on to that, you said that the shooting in the media, people scared of guns. With, if I can find the quote, the recent New Zealand incident, the shooter left a manifesto, which days later was censored by the government, and we could view it or whatever. In that same manifesto, he mentioned part of his intent for the shooting was to cause chaos with the gun control debate, was to do that. The handwritten, question as you will, but it was his words in a 7-page. So, yeah, that was. Here it is. So this was quote. This conflict over the Second Amendment and the attempted removal of firearm rights will ultimately result in a civil war that will eventually balkanize the U.S. along political, cultural, and most importantly, racial lines. So obviously that's not believable to most of us. Or it shouldn't be. It's not something that we would ever let happen, but you can see in his mind that was part of his drive to do this.
If I could go off on a little bit of a tangent here for a second. Guns could be regulated either by the federal governments or by state governments and local governments. What are some of the pros and cons or arguments for and against regulation at one level versus another level?
Right. That's something we looked into a little bit, not as much, but I think it's really a double-edged sword. It can be good both ways. And on a national level, I think at first glance, I want to say regulate on a national level, keep everything equal across all states. You don't want one state, all of a sudden the state's got all the guns, they have loose gun laws, whatever. But on the other end of it, it does vary a lot state to state on the conditions of the state. And in some states, their restrictions have been effective. In some states it hasn't. So I guess that's, to me, a whole other topic.
Are there any common threads on the states where they have stricter laws, where those have been maybe effective? Things that they've commonly done with
So in a state like Michigan, for example, where they have relatively loose gun laws, but they have Detroit in their state as well, which is a very violent city. So in Michigan, there is no permit required for shotguns or rifles, but there is a permit required for a handgun. But in Detroit, if you don't have a permit, you can apply for a registration certificate that allows you to purchase a handgun. And this allows you to purchase this handgun if you are under 18, if you have been addicted to any controlled substance, if you're a convicted felon, all this, it allows you to purchase these handguns if you just fill out this certificate about it. So, and then Michigan's completely different. They don't even have that law in the other cities in that state.
Has that been effective in Detroit?
No, obviously not. I mean, there's still, the youth crime there is insane, especially with guns.
So I guess to go back to my original question, the states, not thinking of states like California, but some other states that do have stricter gun laws, are there any things in those states where it has been effective that they've done that you would say, yes, this practice is effective in limiting gun violence?
I did not look specifically at California. I focused on, I did not focus on, I looked at different countries in one instance, and I can mention that later. One thing to go off, this would be, I guess, a state with looser gun laws, so not exactly answering your question. But there was a study made that each percentage point raise in permit holding of concealed carry permits. So the states, as the 1 percentage point went up in permit holding rates, there was a roughly 2.5% drop in crime rates in the state. Of course, that could be for various reasons, but it's interesting nonetheless. And also, concealed carry license holders in each state have found that the rate they commit crimes are generally a sixth to a tenth of the rate police officers commit crime, which is already a low rate as of police officers. But yes, in some states, I think New Jersey, it was shown concealed carries with the stricter gun laws, but they also historically have crime rates.
Also, just real quick, in Georgia, there's a town called Kennesaw where it's a local law that every head of the household that is residing in the city limits is required to have a firearm in their house. And it is a town with a population of around like 33,000 people, so it's not just some small town. And they have had one murder in the last 6 years, and with a violent crime rate below 2%. So I mean, you can think that's the gun law, or just the criminals knowing that everybody they approach has a gun.
So I saw something like a statistic that could prove this. In California, there were 1,000 guns.